Good morning. It is November 12th. We're here for our regular scheduled county commissioner meeting. We have all three commissioners. We have our administrator, Mr. Danzel, and our clerk of the board, Teresa, here. At this time, I'll call the meeting to order and ask everybody to please rise and join in the pledge. First item on the agenda is the adoption of the current agenda.
Have a presentation of that on here.
That needs to be added.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to adjust this draft that's in front of us.
Okay.
For the first item, after public comment, to be the presentation of a proclamation to Christopher Dare, the director of the Columbia Basin Veterans Center. And then I'd also like to table item number 8 on consent.
There's been a motion and a second for the addition of a presentation after public comment and the tabling of item number 8 on the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Takes us down to public comment. Anybody in the room for public comment? Anybody on the telephone? Takes us to the approval of the consent agenda, items 1 through 7.
Presentation of the,
Oh, excuse me, yes, we added that, and then I walked right over it, yes. So, it is our honor as Franklin County to welcome Chaplain Christopher Dare and Tyler Roll, who served in Iraq and Afghanistan. And we at Franklin County would like to present and Mr. Danzel, are you going to read the proclamation?
I sure can.
We have a proclamation here in Franklin County that we have all signed, and it is going to be presented to these two gentlemen. Please read it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a proclamation for Veterans Appreciation Month by the Franklin County, Washington Board of Commissioners. Whereas the residents of Franklin County owe an immeasurable debt of gratitude to the courageous men and women who have served and continue to serve in the United States Armed Forces. And whereas these brave individuals have defended the freedoms and ideals upon which our nation and country were founded, often at great personal sacrifice and risk. And whereas Veterans Day is nationally observed on November 11th, a significant day of remembrance and honor, and whereas it is fitting and proper that we extend this recognition beyond a single day, dedicating a full month to acknowledge the profound contributions, sacrifices, and continued service of our veterans and their families. And whereas Franklin County is home to thousands of veterans whose skills, dedication, and leadership enrich our communities every day. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the Franklin County, Washington Board of Commissioners hereby declares the entire month of November this year, as well as every year moving forward, starting immediately, to be known as Veterans Appreciation Month. And be it further proclaimed that all citizens, businesses, schools, and organizations throughout Franklin County are called upon to observe Veterans Appreciation Month with appropriate programs, ceremonies, and activities that honor the service of our veterans, increase public awareness of their sacrifices, and support veteran-focused initiatives throughout the month. Thank you very much.
That is our proclamation, and I think it's fitting that it comes up against the Day of Infamy in the United States of America that was proclaimed by Roosevelt, that President Roosevelt, that we would be remembered, and the amount of lives that were lost on that day, and it drug us into World War II. So with great honor, I award you with this, but I know you would like to say a few words first, so please.
On behalf of all the veterans in this community, and actually I think veterans throughout our country, I want to thank you for taking this on. And I say that I think that in the hearts of all Americans somewhere that they have this understanding, but it doesn't always mean that people get to make these kind of decisions. And so it says a lot about you and all the whole commission. So thank you so much. I do have a veteran standing with me, and Tyler is an awesome example of people who have served and given their life to something so great, just as some of you have done. So thank you for your service as well. It's funny, the green light is something that I've been watching that you guys have put on your building, and I cheer it on. Matter of fact, next year we plan to hand out green lights to anybody and everybody who would be willing to put one up in their house or business, and to make sure people understand how important that is. So thank you so much. I do want to say that we've done something for the month as well, and I only want to say this because for the thousands and millions of people listening today, I want them to know that they can get a sign. One of our big things we stand against is veteran suicide. And obviously, there's a strange phenomenon that's not good going on right now, where too many veterans are taking their life. And so when we come together and we do this, it's just to show honor, to show value, but also to make sure they know where to get help. And I believe the Columbia Basin Veterans Center is the best place in this region. But also, if there's a great emergency, please call 988. Just know that we're here to serve, link arms with you guys. We can't do it by ourselves, but I don't think you can either. I think it takes everyone together. So thank you so much, and I appreciate it.
If you wouldn't mind, I know my fellow commissioners would probably like to say something too, so feel free if you would
Right,
like
no,
to.
thank you to all our veterans, and you have our support, and appreciate everything that they've done for our freedoms. Thank you.
Thank you for coming today, and I'm excited that we get to proclaim how much we support our veterans in the most successful nation that has ever existed on Earth. We can thank our veterans for that. There's been more people come out of poverty because of the American veteran. There's been more people that have been able to live free because of the American veteran. And thank you for your service. Thank you for what you do. And yes, let's link arms and take care of our veterans. Help our veterans that still serve today. And thank you to everybody that works on behalf of our communities. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
And I got the opportunity to be raised around veterans because the Columbia Basin Irrigation Project was available to veterans. They got first shot at this land. So the majority of our neighbors were veterans, and I'd like to tell a little story about the one gentleman that lived right up the road. He flew bomber missions in World War II, and I believe he was in the B-25, and they were only supposed to fly 50 missions, and he flew 83.
Wow.
And every mission before he took off, he prayed, not for him and his crew. He prayed for the innocent people they were going to be dropping bombs on. He was a great man. And I just want to recognize him. And Mr. Chrisman was right up the road from us. Great man. But anyway, I know you'd like to get a picture. So
I would love, if you guys don't mind, coming
No.
together. I'm going to have Tyler join us.
And I'd like to recognize another veteran out in the audience right there.
Oh, very
We call
cool.
him Henri.
Mr. Briggs here is also a veteran of the Army.
No, honestly, this is for the Board of Commissioners. On the count of three, say Apache helicopter. That's good. Thank you. Oh, absolutely. Yes.
I did want to say that we have. Oh, I'd love that. Oh, I'd love that. We still have about 150 more of these. If anybody wants to stop by the Veteran Center and grab them. I do have a few that I can leave out here if you guys would like, just in case. So, thank you
Great.
again. Have a great meeting.
Thank you.
And Mr. Henri is George Dockstetter, by the way, if anybody didn't know. Vietnam veteran. All right, I really appreciate the service of our veterans and what they've done for us as individuals in this country. So with that, we'll move down to the next item, which is the approval of the consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I move for approval of consent agenda items 1 through 7 as presented.
Second?
Been a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Takes us down to regular business. Resolution 2025-337, approval of interlocal agreement ILA with the city of Pasco, Colotis, and Mesa for the Integrated Solid and Hazard Waste Management Plan, presented by Mr. Erdman.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, Board.
Morning.
The purpose of this ILA is to establish an integrated solid and hazardous waste management plan for Franklin County, fulfilling the city's and county's obligation under RCW 70.95 and others state and federal laws and regulations governing waste management and contributing to the health and safety of all Franklin County residents. Franklin County acquired the services of Herrera Environment Consultants Incorporated to assist with the update of the Franklin County Comprehensive Solid and Hazardous Waste Management Plan, as previously approved by resolution. The complete plan draft is up for final approval on December 3rd. The plan will then be brought back to SWAC for final editing. Once approved by SWAC, the plan will be brought before Pasco, Connell, Colotis, and Mesa councils for approval, and then an open public hearing will be set up for here and to the board for final approval. The city of Connell preferred not to review the final draft and not sign the ILA at this time. Is any questions I can answer?
Questions, commissioners?
Is Connell going to do their own?
I don't know. They just deferred to wanting to see the final draft before they signed on. If they don't sign on to that, then I believe they are on their own for their portion of the plan. So that's my understanding.
So do we sign this first then today? We pass it, sign it, then they're going to sign on after?
Yeah, we'll enter into the ILA to get the plan completed and stuff. So
Any other questions, Commissioner? I have no questions. Absolutely. Yes, Mr.
Cities,
Gansel.
yeah, cities can and are, must plan if they don't, if they're not part of this. And so kind of what I'm curious about is that it would be an enormous cost to the city of Connell. So I think what I'll do is maybe reach out and see if that's,
good. I don't know what's driving their hesitation at the moment. It might be simply that they just want to see what the final plan looks like, so.
Okay. Well, if there's no more discussion, I'd entertain a motion.
Move for approval of Resolution 2025-337 as presented.
Second.
Been a motion, a second, for approval of Resolution 2025-337. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Erdman.
Thank you.
Next, we'll move down to open public meeting hearing. At this time, I'll open the open public meeting. And this is on proposed 2026 county budget and revenues presented by Mr. Tim Anderson. And this is an open public meeting, so the public will get to weigh in on this after the commissioners have commented. So please carry on, Mr. Anderson.
Anderson's also a veteran.
Yes. We have a lot of veterans in here, Mr. Briggs, Mr. Anderson, and I thank you for your service.
Thank you. So this is a public hearing on revenue sources for the 2026 budget. It's per RCW 8455-120, and there's the statute right there. I'm not going to go over everything, but essentially, we're to have a revenue hearing for the public can comment on. So for the 2026 current budget currently, for what we have in there right now, this is just a breakdown of all of the revenue for the budget. And so it doesn't include beginning fund balance. It's actual true revenues and transfers in. It's all the money coming in. So property taxes is 27% of the overall budget at $12,119,000 currently, and that's to be adjusted some once we get final numbers from the assessor's office. The sales and use tax is another 29% at almost $12,800,000, and then you have other governmental at $4.5 million. But you can see just from the property taxes and sales taxes alone, it's nearly 60% right there. It's a very large, and it's really even more than that, as I'll get into as we go along. But we're very dependent on these two revenue sources, and property taxes, outside of new construction, which has been, pretty good for the county in recent years, has helped to grow the amount of the tax base. But outside of that, we're limited to the 1% typically outside of a lid lift or anything like that. And so that this, is something that isn't going to have as much growth potential. The sales and use tax is one that has grown a lot in recent years. I mean, we've had years where I think there was one year where it grew like almost 20%, 18% or something, but we've had, 10%, I think, on multiple years. It's something that the county has really depended on to be able to support the ongoing operations, and it's one that at least this year has been starting to tail off some. So there may be some concerns of the economy, and so just because we're seeing a drop off of that, if we're not seeing some of the, I think in recent years we've been supported by a lot of new businesses coming in and collecting on the sales tax on that, and if we're not seeing some of that new developments, then the sales tax will take a hit for that. Here's just a chart, same information as what's shown in this last column here, the 2026 budget, but just giving a picture through the years of the 2023 actual, 24 actual, 2025 adopted since 25 is not finished, and then 2026 budget. So you can, even the sales tax figures, how that's been, going up pretty substantially through the years, but then we have it coming down for 26. So that's certainly a concern for the county. Another one that we have benefited from, which is in the miscellaneous, is investment interest here in recent years. It's one that last year I think was over $3 million. The 2 years before that it was over $2 million. But we've had years where we've only collected right around $50,000 just due to interest rates being so low, and then potentially not as much available money to invest as well. And so that's another one that has helped the county in recent years. So current expense, heavily reliant on property and sales and use taxes. Property tax, about 28% of the budget, which is, as I mentioned, I'm looking at only revenues not beginning fund balance when I have that percentage. Sales and use tax, 29%. But then as far as sales and use tax, we also transfer in from our criminal justice fund for got the number there wrong, 2012.003 criminal justice sales tax fund, which is about 9% of the revenue. So we use that money we collect that sales tax, pay the bond payments on the what was the jail, as well as the software And then whatever's left, we have been using for operations in current expense. And so that is another 9% of our budget. There's other transfers that come from other, at least partially sales dependent funds. There's the mental health fund to corrections. Which mental health fund collects both sales tax and property taxes in that fund. And so, it's a mix of the two of those two first lines that are property and sales tax, once again, that are coming into current expense for mental health related functions. So about 67% of the overall current expense budget is property and sales and use taxes. For 2023, this amount was 64%, 2024, 62%, and the 2025 budget is currently 67%, and it's not finalized yet, but that's we have in there currently. And so, if we start to see a dip in sales tax, it just, with our being so dependent on it, it can cause some planning issues for the future, not having that revenue source. Property taxes, currently in there at $12,119,000, which is an increase of $252,367 from the 2025 adopted budget. Not including, these are preliminary numbers, but the intent is not to include the 1% property tax increase. That's a board decision, approximately $120,000. And then the no road shift currently is being planned in there right now. That's once again a board decision. In 2025, it was there was a $0 road shift, $750,000 in 24, $350,000 in 23, and then $750,000 in 22. We've had that as high as, there was multiple years where we did a $1.7 million road shift. So that, I think as far as the board is concerned, is a big win having that come down like it has, because keeping money for the roads. But yeah, it was 1.7 million, I think, for maybe even as 5 years or more. It was that number, I believe. Last year, the commissioners also found that there was excess funds in the Veterans Assistance Funds, and therefore did not levy or deposit funds into the Veterans Assistance Fund. Essentially, it was kept in current expense. As of November 10th, there's about $807,000 of cash and investments in the fund, just so you guys are aware. And in 2025, the county's only spent $58,000 so far. In 2025, and then in 2024, we spent $121,000 and $30,000 in 2023. And so, and I think part of the reason for that is I think there's been funding coming in from the Benton County Human Services has been administering that, and I think they've received a lot of, there was a lot of COVID money that was received for one, and so I think they were able to utilize those funds rather than the funds that we have. But ultimately, there's been pretty low usage in a lot of these years. I mean, like I say, 58,000 through this year. So that's another decision which I think I have it on another slide, but I think the levy for that's right around $190,000. So that's another board decision with $800,000 in there, what they want to do with that levy, if they want to levy it and put it into the Veterans Assistance Fund or utilize that money in current expense. Sales tax. So this slide is strictly on there. There's multiple sales taxes that we collect. We collect for juvenile corrections sales tax. There's another public safety sales tax. There's some sales tax that we've remit to the city of Richland for 911 services. So this is just strictly our main sales tax that's in the treasurer's office. So currently in the 2026 budget, we have it at $7,630,000. The county is on pace to collect for 2025 between $7 million and $7,350,000. So based on that, the 2026 budget range would likely fall between 6.6 and 9. It's a wide range, but the way things are going, it could go either way. I think right now the 7,630,000 is a pretty decent estimate of what we'll end up collecting next year. You know, and for 2025, like I say, it's been a down year. We've only had 1 month in the entire year so far, and the revenue cycle goes from March to February for sales tax collections because it's we receive it 2 months behind collections, and so when I'm looking at we've only had 1 month better, I'm really looking from March through October, although I think it actually applies to January and February as well. But June was the only month that was higher than 2024. So it's been lower every month. You know, and historically that just hasn't been the case here. We've, you know, through COVID and even before that, you know, it's just we've been seeing growth in sales tax at a really good rate. For fiscal year 2024, the county collected $5,251,454 through October, and for this year, it's been $4.9 million almost, so $391,000 less through October. So just some closing comments. Board will need to make some decisions, not necessarily today on property taxes. The 1%, if that's desired. If there's going to be any road shift, if any, how much. The Veterans Assistance Fund levy, what to do with that, $190,000 approximately for that. And then, you know, sales tax has been great for the county, but county is down this year. It's being reduced from $8 million in 25 to $7,630,000 for 2026. You know, just if the county's seeing its construction slow down, we're not going to see the same growth that we've seen in past years. If the economy starts to go bad and business aren't looking to build in the area, then we'll suffer for that. And so hopefully we don't see that. But you know, at least right now we seem to be seeing a little bit of the signs this year. And I don't think that there's. I mean, I think there's certainly some plans for next year as far as buildings, but I think that the number, the 7,630,000, is probably a pretty decent number to go on. Investment interest, I mentioned that previously. It's one that we've utilized to balance the budget and utilized to, and not to say we don't want to have it in there, but at the same time, when it's something that fluctuates as much as it is, and also, I think it's spoken to a little bit in the financial policies that we really should be trying to avoid using more one-time money, and I think investment interest may be one of those that's considered as kind of one-time money because of it, the way it's been fluctuating. It's we got to be careful about basing ongoing expenditures, ongoing costs such as salaries and benefits on something that, you know, really could go away. And so just being a little more careful on a revenue stream such as that. That's all I have. I don't know if there's any questions.
Questions, commissioners?
Maybe after the public hearing portion, just still thinking and writing here.
Well, I have one, Mr. Anderson. On the Veterans Fund, we can shift that money to use in our general fund?
That was my understanding. It was happened yet last year.
It is, but last year I was under the impression that what we did is we declined to take the tax from the people.
From my understanding, I don't believe so. I think you ultimately assess. I think it's always assessed because it's part of the current expense calculation, and then so it's part of the overall levy, and then the 0.0025 or whatever that goes to the veterans fund, or maybe it's 0.0875, whatever the rate is. Mm-hmm. I think it's part of the overall calculation always, and then it's just moved over to that. But from my understanding, we can decline to send it there if the amount is surplus to our needs.
And it's at 805,000, I believe, is where we were at on that.
I'm sorry, what was that?
It's at current, it's at 805,000.
Correct, right over 800,000.
And according to our resolution that we passed on that, I thought that if we had 3 years collected, we were supposed to decline taking the tax. If we had 3 years total, then we were not going to collect the tax from the people until we were in need of it more, and then we could re-implement it. That's not the way this policy is written?
I'm not the legal expert. I'd have to.
We need to look into that.
So your understanding is what my understanding was, is that we declined to collect that tax. And so
Yes.
I didn't understand that it was just being shifted to a different pot.
I don't feel good. I don't feel comfortable using funds that was designated for veterans to help balance our budget. To me, that's not right.
And if I could chime in,
Yes,
Chair.
Mr. Briggs.
So, and I'd have to look at the exact source of that funding, the Veterans Fund, as well as, I was having the same thought actually for the criminal justice one. If it's the statute that I'm thinking about, where, is it a portion of sales tax revenue
For the criminal justice,
for veterans and criminal justice?
the Veterans Fund is property tax.
Is it property? Oh, okay. Then I might be thinking of a different one. But I'll look into that. I'll trace it back to the resolutions because I believe you're right. That if it's earmarked for that by statute, we can't shift it to the general fund.
Could you please
Yeah.
review those before next
Look at
week
that.
so we can
Sure.
talk about those again? Thank you. Is there any other discussions,
That-
questions?
Clarity on that will be helpful, because that was certainly my understanding, is we were not going to collect it. And I agree with you that it's not right to balance our budget with those monies.
Is there any more comment or questions? And then I'll open it up to the public. Is the public interested in speaking on behalf of this? It is a public hearing.
I think one of the items that might be wrong is your investment interest. My interest that I'm getting right now is down over 20% from what I was getting last year. And I think you're going to find the same thing with yours, and it looks like it's going to go lower. So you're talking maybe $500,000 less right there that you've been getting for the last 2 years. And I think that needs to be taken into consideration, that might be pie in the sky.
Thank you, Mr. Dockstetter, and thank you for your service to our country.
My concern is the policies of the state charging for internet and web services. That hits almost every single nonprofit and profit in the county and the city. They're really going after money like hounds, and I really would encourage the county to work with other counties to address that. Taxing us more because of their decisions at the state level and violating things that are going on nationally is a problem for all of us in Franklin County. Another concern that, and I don't know if this is true or not, and this is more in the city, and I wish the city would drop their taxes. They're extremely high. They're sending business over the river. They've got plenty of revenue from sales tax over there. I'd like to see those retained here. But I see and I don't want to disparage any of these businesses, but I see like Overding that owns Kia. Are they running the taxes through their head office over there? Or are we actually getting the benefit of those taxes locally? And if there are businesses like that have headquarters somewhere else, is the county checking to see where they're actually conducting that tax? I just believe Franklin County is a very flourishing place, and we're not seeing the benefits of those fruits. So thank you for your time.
Anybody else for public comment? Commissioner Baumann, do you have other questions? I know for a fact that there are some construction sites that have bought their materials in other locations and are able to build in Franklin County without paying the sales tax in Franklin County. Correct, Tim?
I'm not sure about all the activity going on right now.
but I have heard that that's going on, so.
I have asked that question. I've tried to run it down, not having much success with it. I've talked to the treasurer's office. The question that I had was the processed water reuse facility is a very large, very expensive facility, and all of the goods that were purchased there, did we see any benefit from that? They're using county roads, it's out in county ground, and did the county see a benefit from the sales taxes for that? And as far as I was able to tell, the answer to that is no. I just don't know how to ask the question further or who to ask it of. I believe the correct answer would be we should be seeing value from those sales.
Yes.
I just don't even know who to ask that question to.
Well, all good questions, and obviously we see where the state of affairs we're in here in this county, and that's why we are putting a hiring freeze and we put a spending freeze, and we are trying to get in front of this. Yeah, I wish we would have started earlier, but when we seen it and we got Mr. Danzel at the helm, things started happening. So I appreciate Mr. Danzel being here to help us work through this tough situation. Tim, is there anything more you want to add?
I do not, thank you.
Well, we appreciate all your hard work, your service to our country, and thank you for the presentation.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So at this time, I will close the open public hearing. And we'll move down to closed record hearing, ordinance 12/2025. And at this time, I will open the closed record hearing on the Ryman Industrial Center rezone and ask Mr. McCart to please come forward. Also, before we get started, I need to ask my fellow commissioners, have you had any ex parte communication you need to disclose involving this matter for any reason to recuse yourself from these hearings?
I have not.
And then have you reviewed the entire record?
I have.
Okay. All righty. Are there any questions before we start? Mr. McCart, please.
If you have no questions for me, please continue. Your deliberation is closed.
Is there any discussion?
I guess a question that I would have, I think the answer is threaded through this information, but what happened that this wasn't taken care of when it happened? And so it helped me. There's a lot of pages here to read. I read most of it, but most every word, but there was some of it that got a little muddy in my mind.
So it's fairly simple. There was a piece of DNR land that crossed Railroad Avenue and really belonged in the piece that it is now. The port purchased that property from DNR and moved from one parcel to the next. They're adjoining parcels through a boundary line adjustment. The ag land that was there was zoned agricultural production 20. And when the boundary line adjustment took place, it created a split zoned lot. And that should have been addressed at that time. And I've spoken briefly with the port and I'm aware that DNR and the port are both like, well, how did that happen that it didn't get rezoned then? It should have, but we're cleaning it up now.
So it currently it has been annexed into the city. Is that accurate?
This is currently in the county, but it was, this property is all in the county boundaries. It's not in the urban growth boundary at the moment. It was just a sliver of land that was transferred from DNR to the port, and it had a different zoning on it. So basically, to answer your question, it should have already been done previously when the boundary line adjustment took place. It should have been part of that process. we try not to split zone properties.
Are you finding more of these that we're going to have to go through and clean up too?
I'm going to answer that with, I think no matter how well of a job all of us try and do, there's going to be little remnants that we
Yep.
find here and there. But we try and avoid that.
I sure
And
appreciate
any
it.
of these that we do find, you know, as we do the comprehensive plan and update and the development regulation update, we'll try and clean those up at that time also.
Is there any further discussion? If there's no further discussion, I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve ordinance 12-2025 to rezone a portion of the Ryman Industrial Center under file ZC-2025-01 with 5 findings of fact.
Second.
There's been a motion, a second, for the approval of ordinance 1225 to rezone a portion of the Ryman Industrial Center under file ZZ 2025-01 with 5 finding of facts. Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Aye. At this time, I'll close the closed record hearing. And we'll move into the next item on the agenda, which is another closed record hearing. Resolution 2025-338, closed record public hearing, Ryman Industrial Center subdivision, presented by Wes McCart. I'll open the closed record hearing. And again, I've got to ask my fellow commissioners, have you had any ex parte communication you need to disclose involving this matter, or for any reason recuse yourself from these proceedings?
I have not.
And you'll review the file entirely?
Yes.
Okay, so is there any discussion on this closed record hearing?
I have no discussion.
No discussion. If there is no discussion, I'd entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve Resolution 2025-338 granting preliminary plat approval under file SUB 2025-04 as substantially recommended by the Planning Commission with 6 findings of fact and 19 conditions of approval.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second for the approval of Resolution 2025-338 granting preliminary plat approval under files sub 2025-04 of substantially recommended by the Planning Commission with 6 findings of fact and 19 conditions of approval. If there's no further discussion, all in favor say aye.
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 At this time, I'll close the closed record hearing. Thank you, Mr. McCord. Thank you. And with that, we'll move down to Commissioner Administrator updates. Mr. Danzel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. This past week, been pretty busy. One thing that I'd like to ask, and maybe have Council Briggs weigh in on, I've noticed that our guests from Enterprise have arrived, and I know that we're probably going to have about an hour's worth of executive session. So I was going to see if we could make a motion to amend the agenda and have them put on before the executive session, even though it's a workshop.
Sure, yeah, the board could amend the agenda.
I would recommend that after I'm done with my update, if that's, or Mr. Bauman, Commissioner Bauman, if you want to do that now.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we amend the agenda in front of us.
Okay.
Second.
There've been a motion and a second to amend the agenda to have Enterprise do their presentation now before our updates. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So that moves us into Mr. Erdman and Enterprise coming forward on hopefully saving us some money. Absolutely.
So I've met with Enterprise and the accounting staff in the auditor's office and Mr. Erdman, and I just like to welcome Ms. Clark. She has been very patient with us as a county to try to explore options so that we can right-size our fleet, so that we can do so in an economical fashion, so that we don't have too many, and that we're able to take advantage of volume discount pricing as well as some rebates that are offered exclusively to folks like an enterprise. So the kind of the idea here today is to give you a pitch, kind of show you what kind of potential savings we might be able to realize if we were to utilize this program. I think it's a good program. Ms. Clark has been above and beyond, so much so to the point that she actually sent us pictures of her former K5 Blazer and Toyota Land Cruiser, and then made us pick which one we thought was cooler. Anyway, it's been great to work with her, and I just thought the board would like to kind of get a little bit of a glimpse as to how we could do things in a different way that I think would save us some money.
Thank
Ms.
you,
Clark,
Mr.
thank you so much. Thank you for being here. Appreciate y'all.
Yeah.
Thank you,
for
Mr.
having us.
Gansel. Please go ahead, Ms. Clark.
Thank you so much. Yes, I'm Laura. This is Christian. We're both with Enterprise Fleet Management. We're here, like Brian had said, to just bring the idea of what we do to the county, see if it would be something that there was interest in. Our hope is that what we've put together to present this to you is high level enough that we don't have to take too much time, but also thorough enough that you have a sense of, whether or not you think that there's value. For what it's worth, the K5 is clearly the better vehicle. I think we decided that. But anyway, so Enterprise Fleet Management is commonly thought of because of our rent-a-car company. Enterprise Rent-A-Car is certainly our better known brand. We're the sister company of Enterprise Rent-A-Car. So I like to start there because this conversation has nothing to do with rentals or short-term needs. It's really, to Brian's point, focusing on the vehicles that the county currently owns and operates and how we can help you control and lower costs within that fleet and create a system that's a little bit more proactive and scalable and sustainable. So for what it's worth, the focus of today's conversation is going to be on essentially the non-roads, non-public work vehicles. So we've really taken a lot of intent in figuring out which departments we think would be the best initial fit for this. The sheriff is part of that, but is kind of separate from the financial analysis we're going to show you today. Also, this is a little bit granular, but we can help the county with anything up to 26,000 gross vehicle weight rating. The reason I say that out loud is because when you think of Enterprise Rent-A-Car, you typically think of, commuter vehicles, and this is certainly beyond that. Like I mentioned before, we certainly can also help the sheriff all the way up to the, black and white units that they operate fully upfit, ready for service. The current footprint we have in the government space is about 2,400 clients nationally. We've got roughly 50 in the state of Washington. Certainly we can provide references. I think references probably have been provided in prior conversations. The point of this is if you decided to move forward, you wouldn't be the first. Our hope is that you wouldn't be the last. We've had a lot of success with other counties, cities, special district. One that I like to talk about in particular that isn't in Washington, but I think maybe could find some parallels to what you all are doing today is Kern County. So don't hold it against me, but I spent a lot of my life in California. I moved to Washington about 3 years ago. While I was in California, I had the opportunity to work with Kern County and start a partnership there in 2018. They're still a client. They have the majority of their fleet managed through us at this point. They're utilizing us for maintenance and telematics. At the time that I met with them, they were in a pretty difficult spot because in addition to the fleet being severely aged and averaging about a 10 to 15 year replacement plan, they also were in a very difficult budget position. And naturally, when you're in a difficult budget position, the capital budget and vehicle replacements is one of the first places that you look to cut back. What that had done, though, is so significantly increase the age of the vehicles that they were spending a lot more than was necessary in fuel and maintenance and just not operating as reliable or safe vehicles as they could have been. They also had a little bit of a unique setup where they had the county is geographically so large that they were having difficulties with maintenance. A vehicle would come from across the county to the county shop and sit for 3 or 4 weeks to get an oil change done because there were other priorities like the sheriff or, a ladder truck or something of that nature. So anyway, a similar analysis that we're going to show you today we did for the county. We were able to determine that we'd save them about $2 million over the course of 10 years in helping them not only get out of the minutia of managing the fleet, we can take over the ordering, the registering, the disposal of the vehicle, but also more importantly, having a proactive fleet plan in place that replaces the vehicles every 3 to 5 years. In doing so, they actually won a merit award through an association they're involved in down there, CSAC. So it was a really big win for us. It was a really big win for them. They've been a happy client since then, which certainly we're thrilled to see. Our goal in this is long-term partnerships. So as a partner, you get a dedicated account team that's meeting with you regularly, and every single year we're trying to make sure that we're doing what we can to continue to earn your business. I already touched on a lot of this, but if it isn't obvious, the primary area we're able to provide value, both as your partner and also financially to the county, is helping you figure out what that optimal replacement window is. Most government partners that we wind up partnering with prior to working with us were on anywhere from a 10 to a 20-year replacement plan. Typically, the thought process there is we go low annual mileage, which is true compared to, you know, a construction company or heating and air company. The other component, again, is usually very capital budget driven. So if we can pay cash for a unit today and run it for 10 or 15 years, it's free. The shortcoming in that thought process is it's not free. You just don't have a payment on it. You're actually making your payment essentially in fuel and maintenance. You wind up spending a lot more to fuel and maintain that vehicle than had you replaced it earlier in its life. So the approach we take and the philosophy that we know from managing our own fleet of vehicles, which through Enterprise Rent-A-Car is the largest fleet in North America, we've got about 2 million vehicles, buy and sell about 1 million a year. That philosophy of the optimal life cycle applies really well in this space because you have a unique ability to acquire vehicles at a pretty heavy front-end discount. And then, ironically almost, because of your low mileage application, those vehicles are worth a premium earlier in their life. So our entire strategy is to help you capitalize on that equity, the value in those vehicles in that first 5 years of their life. When you've spent little to nothing in fuel and maintenance, the vehicle was safe, your carbon footprint was as low as possible, you have a proactive strategy to know when you're going to replace that unit. And again, our team is analyzing that year over year as market conditions change and as county priorities change. So for most of our government partners, that sweet spot is more time-based, less mileage-based. It's not that you can't keep a vehicle running to 100,000 miles, 150,000 miles. It's that it doesn't save you money to do that. And if there isn't a savings in running it to 10, 15 years old until it hits 100, 150,000 miles, there isn't a ton of other benefit. So our approach is, hey, what would it look like if you were to replace these vehicles, let's say every 5 years, for example, capitalize on that equity, keep the equity in the fleet, and, you know, control and lower the operating expenses. A large component of how this works is most of our clients move from paying cash to a finance. It's called a lease technically, but I interchange the word finance and lease because if you've ever personally leased a vehicle, you might have an opinion. It can be sometimes people think a lease is a certain type of thing. Normally, what people think of when they think of leasing is what you get from a dealership, which is called a net lease or a closed-end lease, which really mirrors the long-term rental. That is not what this is. That's not what we would recommend in this particular application. So the open-end equity lease really more mirrors a finance in that there's no mileage penalty, there's no early term penalty, there's no wear penalty, and all rights of use and ownership belong to the county. So simply speaking, it's a cash flow tool to allow you to work within whatever the capital budget is, but acquire more vehicles in any given year, which will ultimately help you reduce the overall age of the fleet, which will reduce your operating expenses, and again, get to that place where all the vehicles are as safe and reliable as possible. So most of our clients decide to switch to that funding mechanism simply from a cash flow perspective. Currently, you're averaging about an 11-year hold. We're recommending a 5-year hold from a savings perspective. So either you a little bit more than double the capital budget or you move to making payments. The other component about the payments that's nice is it allows you to be in a place where 5 years from now, it's an easier decision to stay on this proactive optimal plan as opposed to having a large capital outlay today, knowing that you're looking at a large capital outlay in 5 years. Something I put together specifically for the vehicle types that we're talking about for today's conversation is to show you that equity position. Again, that can be a little bit of a foreign concept, is equity in a vehicle, because clearly they're depreciating assets. But the vehicle types that we're talking about today are F-150 or half-ton truck, insert any half-ton truck, we're manufacturer agnostic. Traverse, which is, you know, a mid to full-size SUV, and then the Trailblazer, which is a compact SUV. And as you can see here, starting at month 12 all the way through month 60, you're right side up. So we could acquire you a vehicle today, and in 12 months, we can sell it for more than you owe on the finance. Same thing with 24 months, 36 months, so on and so forth. The point of showing you this is you have a ton of flexibility throughout the term, And again, because it's not a net lease, we're here to help you capitalize on that flexibility. So COVID was an interesting time for us. The resale market was higher than it had been since 1990. And while acquiring new vehicles was very, very challenging, we had a lot of clients that were able to capitalize on the basically falsely inflated equity of their current fleet if we were able to get them new vehicles. And so we don't know that that will happen again. That's not what I'm suggesting, but I'm trying to illustrate how us as your partner in navigating this year over year, month over month is really invaluable because it's all we do. Our whole business is centered around helping you optimize the right time to acquire a vehicle, sell a vehicle, what to replace it with.
Yeah, and I think just to add to that, in our meetings with Brian, obviously we've talked about how do we get the fleet for Franklin County to the right size? Do you have all the necessary vehicles that you need? Do you have too many? Do you not have enough? I think we've talked about maybe there's an opportunity for us to get to the right number, and this allows us to evaluate that year over year. Because if we capitalize and buy a vehicle today, the county's already paid for it if they're paying it on the traditional model that you all are on right now. But through this model, if we decide in 12 to 18 months that maybe we don't need that vehicle anymore, or maybe it's not fitting the right application, we have the flexibility to go out and help rectify that situation for you, whether it's disposing of that vehicle, changing that vehicle out for a vehicle that fits a new application. All of those are things that we can help the county do as fluid as we need to be.
I've touched on this a bit, but I want to reiterate the partnership component of this. So again, our goal is to be a hands-on partner with you to provide white glove service. We're in Washington. We just came from the west side. Again, don't hold that against us either. But we are local, and if you decided to move forward, the account team that would work with you would be local as well. And the reason that's important to us is we understand how much it means to keep, we were talking, your community was talking earlier about tax dollars. We keep as much of that here in Franklin County as possible. We'll have vehicles delivered to your local dealers to try to keep as much business here locally. And our team would be meeting with your team no less than every 6 months, usually in person. That's our preference, to make sure, again, that you're getting the absolute most value you can from the partnership and that we're alleviating as much of the administrative burden as we can, whether, again, that's fleet planning, budgeting, acquiring the vehicles, the ordering process, the upfitting process, et cetera. In addition to the people, we have invested quite a bit. Enterprise is still a family-owned company. I don't know if everybody knew that or not, but the Taylor family is constantly investing back into the fleet management division as well as the other divisions. And in my 14 years with Enterprise, I've seen incredible changes with our technology. We've got a whole new mobile app, an entirely new website. So our goal is that you have that team you can always call on, so the partnership is easy. But if you're somebody that would prefer to go to a website or a mobile app, you also have that functionality at no additional cost. So there's incredible data that's going into this. All of it is available to you. All of it is something our team is looking at on a regular basis to be able to provide the best recommendations so you can make the most educated decision.
Yeah, and I think just one additional thing that Laura had mentioned was our annual review that we do with all of our clients, government and commercial clients, that we're looking at year over year basically as a scorecard on how well we're doing for the county. That's our goal, is we want to come back to you all and be able to say, this is where we were 12 months ago, this is where we are now, and this is where we could be in 12 months. Whether it's holding on to vehicles, whether it's buying, selling, whatever those recommendations are, we want what's best for the county. So we're going to come back and say, here's where the financial benefit that we've provided in different areas, here's the analysis that we're looking at, how we got there. And those are all things that we want to provide you all, because at the end of the day, information is the most important thing that we can provide to the county and make recommendations based on that. But at the end of the day, we're just trying to support you in all the goals that you guys are trying to accomplish, whether it's financially, whether it's operationally, the departments individually as a whole. So those are all of our goals as well.
We've talked a little bit about safety. To give you some examples, safety is a really big topic for us. We like to make sure our clients are obviously in the safest possible vehicles. It's really difficult to quantify the impact of this, but I think you can imagine an aged vehicle that doesn't have airbags or electronic stability control in an accident versus a new one that has both is a pretty different outcome. Some of the big safety inventions, if you will, in the last couple of years. 2012 was the introduction of the electronic stability control feature I mentioned earlier. NHTSA says that's the best safety invention since the seatbelt, so it's pretty significant. Essentially keeps your vehicle on 4 tires in slippery conditions. So currently you've got 2 vehicles that predate 2012, so certainly don't have that technology out of the 64 that were included in this holistic conversation. 2016, you start to see the rear automatic braking, the blind spot detection. 7 of 64 vehicles predate that. 2011, you've got the front collision warning, and certainly a bigger percentage, 17 of 64, so 27 total percent of the fleet included in the assessment here are older than a 2018. So again, aside from the savings opportunity, there are a lot of other intangible benefits of operating a newer, more reliable fleet. Christian had mentioned earlier the opportunity to right size the fleet, i.e. 64 vehicles maybe isn't the number, maybe it's 60, maybe it's 50. And so we've had a lot of conversations with the team about what that would look like and the opportunity to maybe better utilize a motor pool. And newer vehicles tend to be a really good solution for that, because you can imagine one of your drivers has the opportunity to pop into a 2010 Ford Taurus or a 2026 Chevy Trailblazer. They might be more inclined to utilize the motor pool if the motor pool was a new, safe, reliable vehicle.
You're not knocking an old Ford Taurus,
I think
are
the
ya?
Taurus is great. Again, I had a K5. Personally, I like the Crown Vic better than the Taurus, but a lot of people don't like the Taurus, tragically.
I'm one of them.
Yeah. I'm vehicle agnostic. I don't have an opinion, actually, except for the K5, which isn't part of
Unless
this.
you have the old SHOs.
Yeah, exactly. So the last couple of things we had in here, my intention is not to go through this in depth. If you'd like me to, certainly we can, but for the purpose of, again, the time here today, this is the most recent version of the analysis that we've done with the county team. We've been meeting over the course of, I mean, even prior to Brian being here, actually, over the course of a couple years, looking at what's the impact financially. We've revised it a number of ways, trying to identify which are the optimal vehicles to be a part of the program, what does the right sizing look like, and so having updated that to reflect the sheriff's isn't included in this, which is the discrepancy in the total fleet size, but looking at the non-roads, non-public works, non-sheriff, there are 26 vehicles we've identified that would be a good fit. 6 of those have identified could potentially be sold and not replaced, so defleeted is our phrase for that. And if you were to move this direction and replace the proposed 9 vehicles in the first year and then 11 in the second, getting to that core fleet of 20, over the course of 10 years, we're projecting about a $623,000 savings. A lot of that comes from the equity in the current vehicles, which we'd be able to capitalize on in this model. This model replaces everything that's 10 plus years old in the first year. That's those 9 vehicles. And then by the second year, everything that's being replaced is 5 years and older. And then you can just continue on that pace of replacing every 5 years. And then lastly, I'm sure this is semi-difficult to see, at least it was for me. I did my best to squish it on here, but basically these are the actual vehicles that we're recommending being replaced and what with. You're in full control of which ones are replaced, what they're replaced with, but just to give you a sense of what it looks like, which departments were included, what the budget would be overall. Again, the great news is that in the first year, there's more equity than there would be lease payments. So you could use that equity to entirely fund the first year of the program, and then by the second year, there's still quite a bit of equity, but that year, obviously, you have a little bit of a capital budget. These numbers do include us helping the county with maintenance, which would mean sending maintenance to local vendors, third-party sources. You get alerts as you're due for service, you pop it over, and then our ASE certified tech oversees the entire service. That is not something the county has to do. We've talked a lot about Craig and his team and their ability to do that in-house. So if you decided to do that in-house, we would essentially just remove the maintenance column of this, and you would handle maintenance as it is.
Real quick, Laura, for the edification, could you talk just a little bit about the devices that would track how many miles? Thank you. I know that's important to the board.
Yep. Yeah, so we've had some conversations. We work with a company called Geotab. That's Geotab. Geotab is one of the larger players in the telematics space. So the Geotab device, if you decided to go that direction, would plug into the OBD port in the vehicle, and so it's literally reading the engine diagnostic. Can not only track the mileage, which obviously we're a very data-driven company, that's helpful for us. It can also track what services are due, whether or not someone was wearing their seatbelt, harsh braking, harsh accelerating, location. On top of that, there's some pretty incredible capabilities with, if we go the direction of a motor pool and some sort of keyless system or a reservation system, all of that can funnel through Geotab, and then the reservation system would funnel through one of Geotab's partners. So it would make the entire process of maybe utilizing a motor pool a different way a lot easier for whoever's currently managing that, and also for the drivers.
And would that information be accessible to the county, or is it to you and then you give it to the county?
Kind of both. It's yours. It's your data. You have your own portal. You log in there. We do work with Geotab, though, so that some of the information is automatically integrating to our website, and then other things we're working with them to get on your behalf, just to help you make better data-driven solutions. The problem, data is incredible, and there's so much of it these days, but the problem is, what do you do with it, and who takes the time to do that?
Right.
So to answer your question, you have it. It's all yours, but we do have access to it as well as your partner to help make that easy.
Okay.
Commissioner, I would just say, you and I are probably quite a bit alike in being pack rats when it comes to holding on to stuff. I think I've got three small.
Don't you guys cut into all of everybody else's? I'm a pack rat.
Pack rat
too.
as well, okay. So I've got, I think, actually it's 4 small block Chevrolet engines and at least 3 or 4 Power Glide transmissions for
You
rigs.
guys will buy those from him, right?
Yeah.
No.
It won't fit the K5. But
Negotiate out.
very good. So my initial idea, just personally, and this is where this becomes difficult sometimes to kind of delineate, but I think that all of us probably see it similar in that when I buy a rig personally, I buy it with the idea that I'm going to drive the wheels off it, and that's why I know how to work on them. For the government, for the county, the reason I think this is so attractive is because we don't have people setting 4 small block Chevy and 4 Power Glide transmissions aside all the time. And so this is a way that we would be able to keep new vehicles that were safer, that would be able to actually have more data come back from a partner that would kind of let us know when they think that we're getting out over our skis. And so I just kind of wanted to put that out there because I understand the reticence whenever you use the L word. And I call it lease, not love. But whenever you use the L word, it becomes difficult to wrap your mind around how that could ever possibly work because it's almost like we've been having it beaten into our head that it's don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. The reason that I can talk to this with some clarity is we utilize this not in a real huge fashion in the county that I came from, Ferry County. And we were able to utilize the services, and we always came on the right side. And that was for a county that was so resource strapped that we never even had a hope that we could establish a reserve. So the idea that we were able to do that is, kind of an incredible thing. So I have actual lived experience. I want to, obviously always do my due diligence, and so I've looked at this program and just wanted to kind of point that out there that that's the difference. I know that you all, I just know you all too well, that you're about holding on to stuff, fixing it, and putting it back into production. It's just when you're talking about the government and we've got rigs that we don't know exactly how that's been done, how they've been maintained. And then what I like about it is I think you hit you're trading them in and you're getting rid of them before you're having to go put new tires and batteries and suspensions and brakes and not tune up anymore because they're good for about 125,000 miles. But even then, we've got rigs that are that old that we're having to do tune-ups and stuff on that we really shouldn't have, and we should, and it won't cost us. I know that you look at it and you don't have that ownership, but then also you don't get the ownership problems either. Like, well, it's been treating me good, it's been treating me good, it's been treating me good, and then it's obsolete and you can't find parts for it, and it's hard to fix that way. Thank you.
So one question I got for you is, you've already sort of excluded the sheriff's office. Any of the other counties that you're working with do you work with the sheriff's office also?
We do, and I'm sorry that it's a little blurry. We are talking about working with the sheriff's office as well. We're just still kind of working through some of the details of what their needs are and what the build would be.
And how would that work out when they've got to put in the apparatus in the vehicle for carrying I mean, how does that work out with your taking them back in?
Yeah.
Put all that in, or do they do it and then they got to remove it, or how does that all
It
work?
can be either. So, like, for example, we just started working with Island County Sheriff, and what Sheriff Felicia's having us do is bring the units to him ready for service. So we're using his vendor to get them upfit to his spec for his needs. They're going to show up, and he's going to be able to just, give them to a deputy. Whereas for City Lake Stevens, when we first started working with Sergeant Barnes, he decided he wanted to handle the upfitting process just from a sheer comfort level. So we brought him, in his case, he got Durangos versus Interceptors, which I think is what you would do. We brought him the Durango, and then he used his local vendor. By the second round of orders he did, though, he had us take over the process because it's really laborious. It's a pain for them, and it's really easy if we take over that entire thing and you don't have to think about it until it's ready for service. On the back end, usually what happens is it's getting decommissioned prior to sale. Well, that's actually always the case. Whether you decommission it or we have it decommissioned at a vendor is entirely your prerogative as well. Some of the equipment you may be able to reuse. Radios, as an example, are very expensive and often get reused to the second vehicle. Some of it not so much. But part of the reason that the sheriff units aren't included in the analysis is because of this whole component. They're just an entirely different beast financially. It's usually about a push compared to what they've been doing to compare to what it would look like with us, but it allows them to replace their vehicles sooner and be, again, more safe and reliable, which is pretty critical.
And another department we have is the coroner, so the same thing as with it, but he's into using pickups,
Yep.
so.
We can do any of it. Yeah, in fact, Kittitas Corner, we have some vehicles for them. I think one of them was a 1-ton truck, if I'm not misremembering. But any sort of customization that you would need, as long as we're not exceeding that 26,000 gross vehicle weight rating, which would be in the place where you need a CDL, is within our capacity.
Okay.
Great questions.
Well, somebody had a question? I thought I heard somebody say question.
Thank you for the presentation. I jotted down a number of questions here. I think you mostly answered this one. What all different classes of vehicles do you have? And so everything below a 26,000 GVW.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, pretty much the only fields that we don't play in are like fire apparatuses, ambulances, and school buses, and like semi-trucks. Those are, if you think of those four main categories, we just don't play in those space because, to Laura's earlier point, we run a rental car fleet primarily and a truck rental fleet and a variety of other things, but we don't employ any of those in our fleet, so we're not experts in those fields. Also, those are usually $1 million vehicles in most cases, and that's just not where our expertise is, so we know not to play in fields that we're not going to be helpful in, so we kind of exclude those from our program.
Okay, thank you. And then I'll probably get pins thrown at me, but that's okay. Talk about electric vehicles. I look up here and I see some of these where that it shows a need of less than 50 miles a week on average, and being pretty familiar and having had electric vehicles for quite a number of years, are we eligible for rebates as a governmental entity with something like that, with that low of mileage? Would it retain its resale value enough to warrant the more expense of purchasing something like that? I don't know. Speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, the EV space is ever evolving. It's been a big conversation for, at least the last 7 years, it seems like, of my career. We have several clients that have EVs in place. I will say my current experience is that most, whether it's public or private, most businesses are more interested in learning about the EVs, and there's a lot less actually implementing what that looks like. There's some exceptions, like Spokane, they've got an ordinance that they have to get approval to put in anything in place that, if there's an alternative fuel option and they want an ICE, i.e. a gas vehicle, they have to get special approval for that. City Gig Harbor, we did a couple of EVs with them. So certain folks have maybe jumped more into that space than others. Our goal would be, again, to look at it strictly objectively from a cost perspective. Right now, with the incentives where they're at, it's still a delicate balance of, like you said, the added front-end cost what is that sweet spot, the resale, before we start to get to the point where the battery, you know, is at risk. We're still recommending replacing those closer to that 5-year point. And then because of your low mileage application, would the offset of the fuel spend make up the difference on the front end? And right now, normally an ICE engine vehicle is still a lower cent per mile, but that's not to say that that won't change in the future. You are eligible for rebates, and so those rebates play a really big role in that. With Nissan, the rebates were significant in 2025, and then with the tariff conversation, that space looks a little bit different now. Also, the standard rebates kind of got restructured and went away to some extent. So again, it's a pretty volatile space right now, but our partnership would be for us to analyze all of that and show you the comparison. For some folks, there's a bigger benefit of the EV because of the carbon footprint or other, you know, intangible components. I'm sure they are tangible, but it's worth having a higher cent per mile. For other clients, it's all cent per mile driven. Does that help answer your question?
It does a little bit, and that's what I calculate it fairly often so that I know with Washington State being the second highest cost for a gallon of fuel, it's a lot closer than some other states. And you know, right now I have a Cybertruck and I have another electric vehicle also, and like my truck is costing me in the neighborhood of 5 to 7 cents because I charge it at home.
Sure.
Versus, you know, a standard ICE comparable vehicle is in the 28 to 33 cents a mile.
Yep.
And so that's a vast difference. And if the resale value held, there's potential there. But I'm eternally optimistic that our gas prices are going to fall significantly.
Yeah, and I think I can add just a little bit to that. I think the sedan space, the truck space and personal commercial is growing significantly over the last couple of years. Electric sedans have been around with a variety of vehicles for a number of years now. So those are more where people are going rather than the trucks, because the F-150 and the Chevy Silverado and the Cybertruck, those are all just somewhat expensive vehicles in the commercial space, especially for government agencies. So when we can try to figure out what that looks like we don't know what those vehicles are going to resell for just because they're all so new. So we're projecting out what the depreciation on some of those is, if the incentive up front offsets a lot of that. The other big component for most government agencies that I've met with is infrastructure. How many can we support? And what does that cost look like to be able to input the number that we need to be able to charge all of those? Because there's a large financial benefit long term, but the upfront capital is pretty significant.
Yeah, I just look at some of the mileage projected use per year, and some of the vehicles that are likely to be coming out shortly. Some of them are soft on the market now, where that you have an electric vehicle that, you know, efficiently can move 2 to 3 people for in the, you know, $25,000 range, and that's half of the price of some of these vehicles. And so I don't know. I think there's potential there, but yeah, to be determined. You mostly answered my question about the law enforcement vehicles, so would definitely be interested in knowing more about that. In the up to 26,000 GVW, what does that portion of your fleet look like?
Yeah, so it's all our clients' needs. So we're ordering. It's not coming from like a pool of existing vehicles. But I'll give you an example. City of Ephrata became a client probably a year and a half ago, and one of the vehicles they needed was a crane body truck. It was like a $140,000 truck, and so that would be on the extreme end of, you know, the chassis. It was probably an F-550 if I'm remembering correctly. We can do 650, 750, any sort of customization in the bed. If you had. The sheriff department has an F-550 in there. My guess is that has some sort of box on the back that they're doing maybe SWAT or something in. We can do that. The actual sheriff, emergency response vehicles, fully within our realm. Does that help give you a little bit better? Okay.
There's a couple of vehicles up here. So like the prisoner transport bus would be a F-550 chassis-ish type vehicle, and the one that we have is getting up in age. Do you have any non-licensed vehicle that you have? I don't know if it's, I don't know what all of your options are. Lawnmowers, skid steers, all of that type. I mean, I know the name Hertz and just don't know what your options look like?
Yeah, at this point, we're not in that space. We don't do equipment. We don't do yellow iron. Christian mentioned the other vehicle apparatus that we don't do. So it's really like from small sedan to
Licensed vehicles?
Yeah, mhm.
Road licensed vehicles?
Yep.
Yeah, anything really with a 17-digit VIN, excluding some of those things I mentioned. We do get in the field of like golf carts, like Polaris type vehicles, or one of the most commonly is like parking enforcement. We do those vehicles for cities and counties, but that's really the closest thing that we get to a non-4-wheel vehicle. We don't do like motorcycles, things like that, where it gets a little bit in the gray, but.
Thanks. And you answered the question about being fully upfitted and wraps and so forth, and you would primarily use a local shop, which I do appreciate that. So this is probably a little bit more complicated of a question. What is or how do we evaluate how many vehicles we need? When I look at, there's some vehicles up there that have an average of less than 12 miles a week. That vehicle is not necessary. And so how do you guys have a fleet of 2 million vehicles. How do you evaluate that?
Yeah, arguably our utilization calculation in our rent-a-car fleet is probably a little bit more than is fruitful for today's conversation. I'll maybe answer the question with some of the conversations we've had with your team, and if you want to get deeper, we can. But I think for this application, your team has done a really, really, really good job of collecting the data that you currently have access to. My recommendation would be, let's start by simply replacing the aged vehicles that just need to be replaced from their age. As we implement newer vehicles and as we move to this potential reservation system or the keyless system through the motor pool programs, that Geotab partnership becomes invaluable because we can collect so much data from them on the daily use, the hourly use, who's using which department, which driver, and I think that would put us in a much better position 6 to 12 months from now to make a more educated decision. Right now, your team has, again, done a really thorough job with the data that they do have to identify 6 or so vehicles that they have determined, are underutilized and don't need to be replaced. The other benefit of this that we've talked about with the team is there's so much flexibility. If we overshoot and defleet too much, it's really easy to layer back in 1, 2, 5, 10 vehicles, whatever the need is. Also, the last part that I think maybe is part of the answer to your question, and I'll have Christian chime in if I missed anything, but you qualify for the NASPO heavily discounted enterprise rental rates. So we've had the discussion of maybe there are some applications that would be better served to rent a vehicle during the period of time they need it, going to a conference or maybe during elections or whatever that is. And we can also help you analyze the cost difference of owning it, keeping it in service, insuring it, all the things versus renting in the interim. So for us, it's all data-driven, and I think we would really like to collect a little bit more data through the Geotab partnership to be able to get beyond where we've gotten today, but it's a large part of what we do. I don't know if you'd add to that.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think to your point, we can do kind of the calculation of what it's utilized throughout the year, but we just don't know, is that 6 months of the year? Is there 4 months where they need 2 cars for that period of time, but then the rest of the time they don't need it? Like, those are all things that we can use data for, but we'll also, like Laura had mentioned, Brian and the team has been fantastic in helping us do that, and we're going to continue needing boots on the ground here in the county to help us evaluate that, because we'll bring the data to you all. But if you say, hey, this is only going 1,500 miles a year, but we use it once a day, just we don't go that far, or maybe we need that vehicle to be available for whatever purpose, we are going to rely on you all to help us identify that. But we're going to bring you the data and the fact on what is cost effective to do that, and it's just up to the county on what's the best decision for you all.
Thank you. How do we evaluate what is the proper vehicle? I could give a bunch of examples, but you probably kind of understand what my question is. When you're trying to move an individual from one point to another, how do you evaluate what that looks like? There is cases where that you would need, four-wheel drive for inclement weather, but that's the exception, not the rule. How do you evaluate that?
Yeah, I think I can probably speak a little bit to that. So on the previous slide that Laura had up here, this is the output of this analysis, but there's a very, very long list of analyses that go into this that basically is analyzing every single vehicle type that's out there, from a compact sedan all the way through a 550 chassis, 4x4, 4x2, manufacturer, drivetrain. We're looking at all of those things to basically run what's the lowest operating cent per mile in that individual vehicle category. So we're looking at everything that you're currently running today, and in some instances, a sedan is going to cost more than running an SUV. Same thing with a half-ton truck. Most common is like a regular cab truck in government space. The regular cab is less expensive on the front end, but the market on the back end is really small for it because most commercial retail individuals don't want a two-person truck. So if we can buy it up front and then sell it for more on the back end, those are all net costs that we're looking at. So we run every single vehicle that's out there because we don't care manufacturer, and we just want to give you the data to make that decision. So that's all generated into this. And then we'll run basically, if you want to look at an array of options, we're going to present all of them to you and say the SUV is cheaper than the sedan or the sedan is cheaper than the SUV. And then at the end of the day, they perform the same application, to your point. They'll get you from point A to point B with 5 people in the car. But can we do it for a more cost-effective way with keeping everyone comfortable and happy and doing all the other things that are important to you?
I would just add to that too. So that changes year over year. And that's again where for us that year over year partnership and those regular meetings are invaluable because what the optimal SUV is in 2025 can be vastly different from what it is in 26, depending on what those incentives are. The incentives play a really big part of that. The resale market obviously also plays a big part, but the incentives are a little bit more volatile. The other component we've seen a lot of, the people movers are pretty much as simple as what Christian said. But, cargo vans or pickup trucks, what a 10-year-old 1-ton truck could do versus a current 3/4-ton truck can do is different, right? The vehicles have improved a lot, and there's a lot of differences in capacity. Or you look at cargo vans, you used to have the, old express style. Now you've got the ProMaster and the Transit. It's no longer that a 1,500 is a half-ton. The payload difference, the capacity difference between a Transit 150 and a Transit 350 is like 500 pounds. So those are some of the areas of expertise we have where if you come to us and you say, hey, we need a 1-ton cargo van, we might push back a little bit and say, well, what's the payload that you need to put in it? What's the length? How are you using it? And then we can help make specific recommendations once we better understand the application.
Thank you. And I'm assuming this number right here, this is the annual payment for these vehicles.
That's correct. With tax and the cost of enterprise as your partner.
Yeah. Okay. So I think I only have one last question. In your professional opinion, both of you, what would rollout look like for Franklin County? If you had a recommendation for us that this is how we would recommend that you make this transition, what does that look like? Is this January of 26, we switch it out, or is it a 12-month or 24-month, or what's your thought there?
Yeah, so what would be our recommendation on which vehicles is this, which kind of mirrors the other thing, but we've identified the ones we would replace if it were our fleet on the conservative end. So like that first year, we're only replacing 10-plus-year-old vehicles. We're trying to be within something that there's an appetite for. Arguably, if this literally was our fleet, we'd replace everything that was 5+ years old, but we realize that may not be realistic. From a timing perspective, we're currently in 2026 order banks being open, and the longer we get into that, the more likely there are price increases and order banks that cut off, which limits what we can order. Ordering the vehicle direct is by far the most optimal solution for you because you're in control of the spec and you get invoiced less the incentives available. We can acquire from local dealer inventory. It just usually comes at a little bit of a premium, typically 3 to 4% more than had you ordered it. So our hope is that we're able to come to a conclusion on whether or not you want to move forward and get consent to do so before the end of the calendar year so that we could then place orders. Lead times are about 4 to 6 months. So that would mean if you were able to place orders, let's just say hypothetically next month, you would start receiving vehicles spring-ish of 2026, and that's when you would start making payments, which would align with your 26 budget. I don't know if you would add anything to that.
Yeah, I think the implementation process is, to Laura's point, whatever you all want it to be. Our recommendation is to try to just get the fleet in a healthy position as quickly as possible. But normally the process to do that, like in this example, is starting with 9 and then 11 in the next year. And that gets us to the place in 24 months, essentially. But when we order vehicles, there's that initial delay. And then once we drop off, I think maybe it didn't touch too much on the resale process. We have the capability to sell any of your current county vehicles as well. So if we're all these vehicles that are listed here, we order new ones for them. We would drop off and deliver the new one to you. We'd pick up the one that you're currently running. We take out the vehicle. We have a local team here in Washington that hand sells every vehicle. They also sell our rental cars, but they also sell all of our client fleet vehicles as well, to local dealerships, and a variety of other capacities to get the highest dollar amount for you all. And ultimately, that's how we would start to onboard as those vehicles delivered. We would sell the older ones and so on and so forth.
Thank you. I'm very interested, would like to maybe wrestle the idea around a little bit about timing, what our normal spend is for the vehicles these would be replacing, kind of learn a little bit more about that, learn about when you have newer vehicles, your insurance rates are higher, and so there's some of that kind of stuff that I'd be interested in kind of evaluating a little bit. And then wondered, Tim, if there's anything that you would like to shed light on. You look at these numbers far more than we do.
Not particularly. I mean, we've been meeting with Enterprise, and I mean, I think it looks like a pretty good option for the county to go to. But yeah, I don't have anything specific.
Okay, thank you.
My question would be to Mr. Erdman, on the disposal of the vehicles we have, do we have criteria that we got to meet there as far as auctions, or could we possibly entertain this because we do have a policy on that?
I'm not sure. I think I defer to legal on what our necessity for public auction is. You know, we always take it to public auction because we have that requirement in the ER&R.
Right.
Set up to do that because it's public property. It has to go through a public hearing process. I don't know what changes about that in that dynamic or how you would handle that. You know, I suppose if you have some sort of a open hearing for the disposal of it and turn it over to Enterprise, that I think that would work. But again, I'll defer to legal.
We'll need to look into that, Mr. Briggs, if you have the time for that also.
Okay, yeah, I already answered your other question. I sent you an email on it, but yeah, so I'll need to compare that. I know we have a new property management ordinance that would allow us to do direct negotiation of property once it's declared surplus by the county. I just need to compare that to our obligations under the ER&R to see if there's anything that conflicts with that.
And I will just clarify, you totally have full control to do that on your own if you continue to do that. So that's not a problem whatsoever.
Well, I appreciate the presentation, and thank you for all the information. It's something that we're very interested in doing, is saving the taxpayers of Franklin County money.
Well, thank you all so much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
I don't think that's touchscreen.
Oh.
Have a safe trip back to the
Yeah,
west
thank
side.
you very much. Yeah. You are holding that
And
against me,
California,
sorry.
and California is a great state to be from.
Yeah, well, thank you for saying that. You're the first person in Washington to say that to me.
So that's where I'm from too.
Okay.
There is one thing from California I'd like to see Washington State follow.
What's that?
Proposition 13, along with the Williamson Act, and that is you're taxed on what you paid for your property, not what the evaluation is.
Yeah.
That's one way. I'd like to follow their lead on
That
it.
sounds beautiful.
We'll support you in that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
All right, with that, we'll move down to Commissioner Administrator updates. Mr. Danzel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Oh,
We have an opportunity for public comment on that workshop?
that workshop, we added it as part of the agenda on, I'm sure, do we have a?
It was a workshop.
It was a workshop, so public comment, please.
So I noticed that one of the issues is low mileage, especially from the assessor's office vehicles, which when we were purchasing them, two of you sat on this board, and that was one of the things that I brought up to you, that we would not have to replace them for a minimum of 10, maybe 12 years. One of those, three of the vehicles, they said, well, gee whiz, you can sell them next year for about $7,500. We can get another 9 or 10 years of use out of them, and for $7,500, I'm just telling you, at least 9 months out of the year, I have 7 of those vehicles in the field. They may only go 2 miles, and then they sit there and work city blocks. They may go 4 miles that day. They may go out in the blocks twice every 6 years, and we try to send 2 of the vehicles out the furthest so we keep the others closer, not to put the mileage on. I'm telling you that if you go with this for the assessor's office, for them to replace, and we go into a carpool or a county pool, it's not the mileage, it's the amount of use, the days that they're getting used, and there's at least 9 months out of the year that I have to have people in the field, or we don't get the assessments done, we don't get the revals done, and we don't get the new construction done. So if you take all of those vehicles, what they were saying you could sell them for next year, okay, and add that up, it was less than about $60,000. I'm running those vehicles for another 9, 10, 11 years, depending on my predecessor, but it's capable of doing that. And we're operating them on about $8,000 a year budget for fuel, maintenance, and everything else. Now, that'll increase in a few years with maybe tires, although we put tires on one last year. So think about that. I certainly gave them the mileage information and pictures of the vehicle. That's without the safety lights that have to be paid for. I just think that for that office, it's the wrong thing to do financially. I easily can show you, and I was not contacted by anybody as far as the days of use, but there's a good solid 9 months, all 7 are in the field. So just keep that in mind.
Mr. Danzel.
How did the miles don't back that up, though?
Yeah, they do, because some of the times there's only
don't-
maybe 3 miles for the day, 4 miles for the day.
That's what my thing was, that, I mean, when you average over 12 months, when you average less than 12 miles a week, I struggle with that. It's
think
cheaper to
Part
use-
of it was when they were picked up. Part of it's we had some employees that were out. We didn't get
I
positions filled,
understand
so I
that,
couldn't run
but
it.
averaging, I walk more than that. I walk more than 12 miles a week, so I don't know how that we utilize a $30,000, $40,000 vehicle less than 12 miles a week on average. It would be more of an advantageous decision to use Uber than to have a vehicle. I'm sorry, that's what the number says.
Yeah, I think it needs to be relooked at, and some of those numbers need to be reconsidered.
So I did look at the numbers. You have 5 in your fleet that drive less than 2,000 miles a year. And that's, when you look at the entire motor pool, the problem that's exists in this county is exactly what the assessor has mentioned, is people hold on to rigs for 10 years and they're not worth anything. This gets you new rigs, but it changes one thing, where people say, that's my rig, that's my this, that's the asset. You gotta get out of that kind of thinking and have it be a motor pool where people can check it out. You're not gonna have any less nice rigs. You're gonna have the same, you're gonna have availability. It's just the boogeyman thing here is at play, I think, a little bit, to where otherwise, why don't we buy more? If that's a good way of doing business, let's buy
but I'm not
25 more
opposed.
vehicles and run them 2,000 miles a year each.
Administrator, I'm not opposed to a pool. I'm just saying the accessibility then, those vehicles are used at least 9 months out of the year, and if we don't have enough vehicles in the pool to be able to use them on a regular, because right now, we're in the field November, December, January, February, March on a fairly consistent basis, unless we're in for a hearing.
But
or
the data
throwing
doesn't
something.
back that up. You just aren't putting the miles on to show that that's accurate.
Oh,
what
I
you just said.
understand. If you've got a 200-day, let's say you've got 200 days for an entire year, work days, or 240. Even 10 miles a day is 2,400. And if you've got 2 or 3 employees that are out part of a year and you're not using them. So the carpool is not a problem. It's the availability of a vehicle as often as we need it. That's the issue. And I don't think that you can get into a carpool and do that value for the cost of the return on it. That's
Well-
just my opinion. So
Well,
just look at the numbers.
We heard from the presentation that we can adjust on the run with them. They can do whatever they want, and we're not looking at just a department. We're looking at the overall
Understand.
county package.
And
and
if
saving
there's enough
money.
vehicles that we can get them when we need them, that's my concern, is being able to get out.
All right,
Okay.
we're good.
That's another question that, as we kind of evaluate that, and we were to go to a pool of how would we do that? Just something that, is going through my mind of how do we do that?
It would be very simple. I would have Bo Beckley, I don't know if Bo's in here. I would have him create a reservation system that would be managed by the commissioner's office so that once one was taken, you would see what's available and it wouldn't be available to be rented or taken out that day. I would throw my car back in. I think that the county administrator having a Jeep, like my own deal, that needs to be pushed to the pool. I think that all of them need to be considered Franklin County rigs. I think that we could utilize magnet. I know that what the assessor's saying when it comes to like, first of all, there's no law saying that there's got to be warning lights that I know of on assessors' vehicles, but for the betterment and the safety of them, I think you could utilize magnets and some of the other equipment that I've already spoken to Laura about. And I think that it's just a really short-sighted way of looking at things to continue to allow departments, like she was saying, every 5 or 10 years come in with like $400,000 requests so they can buy a couple new rigs. And I think this puts us on a field that where if we do it right and we get buy-in from folks and we don't have a bunch of pushback and people saying, no, I just don't want to do it, then what you'll really have is you'll have newer rigs that are more available, that'll right size what our fleet is, and then from the same folks that always want to talk about cost of living increases or maybe more office space, some of those funds that we're saving could maybe be utilized for other parts of the county. I think it just makes sense.
We're still on public comment.
I very much liked the presentation, and from a previous employment where I had to travel a lot, used a lot of different rental vehicles. Enterprise was a top-notch company to deal with. Concerns for taxpayer dollar. Are they the only company that does this? Is there a possibility of a comparison? Just to make sure that they are not a single source, the concern is that taxpayer dollars become somewhat predatory given the terms. And I wanted Tim to keep a good eye on the interest because I do think from their model that's where they're making bank. And I have no problem with people making bank, but still has to be right sized to the taxpayer dollars. I also would like the vehicles licensed in Franklin County. I think that was covered. I will say to the people that serve on the Benton Franklin Transit Board, the Connect vans all have California license plates and license fees. And I stringently object to that. And I would strongly suggest that this group, if this is a viable group, be used as a presentation to save both counties a lot of money in lieu of not having a referendum on the whole transit, big buses transporting 2 people. Thank you.
Is there anybody else for public comment? Nobody on the phone? So at this time, we'll move into Mr. Danzel, your update.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Met with individual board members to discuss this agenda, met with the auditor staff to discuss the presentation you just saw, various elected officials and department heads. I did want to point out that I met with the IS director and staff. There's a new member of the team there, and her name is Jamie Almeida. So if you see Jamie, maybe welcome her. She's been awesome. She's just hit the ground running, and you've seen her in here before, actually working on some of our programs, but really impressed, and just something that I thought would be kind of neat to do is to, when we bring new staff members on, is announce it at the next available meeting. So I'll be doing that from now on. Met with Mr. Erdman, Public Works Director, just to go over a few different things and to establish a normal meeting time so that we can try to best prepare for if there's anything that's coming either direction for the meeting days. I do want to apologize to my normal Monday appointments. With the short week, I had to utilize it for working to prepare for this meeting. And then the majority of it was spent with going over the enterprise system, and then with Veterans Day being yesterday. It always makes for an interesting week because we're trying to get an agenda put together. So I just wanted to take a minute and tell you, and I know I've done this before, but just explain to you how special your clerk of the board is, Teresa Alvarez. So we just wouldn't have been here today and wouldn't be able to function if it wasn't without her. And not only did I get communications from Ms. Alvarez, but this was all done in a very short amount of time frame notice. And then she was asking me ideas at 7 o'clock, I think, on the last Friday night. Her commitment knows no ends, and if there's anybody out in the county that's got problems with the administrative office, it's got to be with me. It cannot possibly be with Mrs. Alvarez. She's second to none and class personified. I really want to thank you for a job well done. Thank you.
Mr. Baumann.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Just
Excuse
a minute,
me.
I'm starting the stop clock right now.
You have 3 minutes.
Listen here. Was able to attend a Franklin County Fire District 5 Commissioners meeting last week, and where that the fire chief there announced that he was retiring from that role. And it was also a pretty special thing right at the beginning of that meeting, where that there had been a big fire out in the county, and there had been some funds raised by the people that were helped by that fire being put out by Fire District 5, where that they purchased a flagpole, and then they had a flag raising ceremony with a new flag, and that was pretty special to see. So thank you to Chief Thornhill for his service to Franklin County Fire District 5 and our community. Had a land banking workshop last week, Ben Franklin Transit Executive Board meeting, various different meetings around the county with phone calls and other. And then appreciate Public Works very rapidly. I got a phone call that somebody had moved the barricades, and there was loaded concrete trucks going across the bridge that is failing and is in a emergency closure status. And so appreciate Public Works getting right on that, and was able to go out there and look at that bridge, and it's in a very deteriorated state. And I know that Craig, you're working on that hard, and know that there's other bridges that aren't far behind, and so we got work to do there. But and then wondered if we could get an update on the HAPO HVAC project with McKinstry and with the state enterprise services. And then would also ask that our administrator prepare an ordinance for us. And I'm guessing that this would need to be done in coordination with the Sheriff's Department, Public Works, for equipment, old vehicles, stuff that we need to dispose of. I know that we've talked about it a number of different times, and I'm not sure exactly what that looks like, but from old seats to old vehicles that are no longer necessary for criminal investigations and that kind of stuff, would like to see that we clean up and dispose of those so that our Public Works can have access to their full facility for their needs. So that's my report, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Mullen.
So last week had the Health Department meeting with a special meeting about increasing rates, and Franklin County unanimously voted no, and Benton County unanimously voted yes, but the motion failed. Raising the fees is just raising taxes, and it was my recommendation that we go through all the fees and take another good look at them and see what the justifications are. I hear complaints about not enough low-income housing, and they want people to build more low-income housing, but yet they want to raise all the fees associated with building a home. Kind of an oxymoron, in my opinion. So I think we should take the time and go through the fees and see what the justifications are. So with that said, also did the auction for the veterans up in Kettle and Colville this last week. It was a fundraiser for them. It was an honor to do that, and they actually had 2 people there that were World War II veterans. Mr. Dotson, 102 years of age, was a pilot in World War II. So that's pretty impressive. And also they had the presentation of the Quilts of Valor, which I think is a great program, and it's just nice to see that there are people working hard to show their appreciation for the veterans when they come home. So It was an honor to do it. And that's my report.
Thank you for doing that for them. Again, I was on the Board of Health with Commissioner Mullen. I was virtual. He was present, so he took all the arrows. Yes, I voted no on the increase of fees because the Board of Health, which has turned into a little military-type group, I guess I should say, or whatever, the governor and the Secretary of Health have put other people on our boards of health now instead of just the 6 commissioners. They weren't there to vote on this. So
There was one present, but they're not allowed to vote on
Right.
budget items.
they were not allowed to vote, so Commissioner and I both voted no. I didn't realize Commissioner Mullen voted no until after the meeting, and Mr. Danzel got a hold of me. But I'm deeply honored to be serving with Commissioner Mullen on the Board of Health. That is something that we're bringing forward, is Franklin County is saying enough is enough. The people are hurting it too. They can't keep raising fees and costs, taxes on the people, the residents of Franklin County. We've got foreclosures, we've got bankruptcies, we've got farmers that are in dire need of some help, and it is ugly out there right now. And there was a 60 Minutes, my brother told me there was a 60-minute show on some Midwest farmers, and the suicide rate is 3 times the highest as the normal rate for farmers right now, which is troubling. It's tough times. So I am, again, thank you, Commissioner Mullen. We got to make a stand. And it was funny, we just talked about that other groups that we sit on, the Board of Health, you and I sit on, and then Ben Franklin Transit. I have asked Ben Franklin Transit to please let the people vote again whether they want 0.6%. I can't get the Board of Directors to put that out there for the people to vote on it, so it would take the people to put a petition out there. And I would hope somebody would step forward, create a petition, and get it signed so that we put it on the ballot to let the people have a say whether they want to be taxed at 0.6% with a $100 million reserve fund. And all they're doing is beating up the streets, pounding the pavement, burning diesel, and they're not moving people in Franklin County. With that, I also had the agenda meeting. And just coming in this morning, I almost watched another head-on collision on Glade Road, but it was not farm equipment this time. It was a truck that was going the speed limit and a car that got a little bit carried away and passed, and there was a car, and he just barely got back into his lane. Then I want to make the people aware of our Department of Ecology is at it again. There is Deer Park, Washington. Bob Griff has spent his whole life farming at an age of 85 in deep in debt to the Washington Department of Ecology. They're claiming that he does not have the right to farm this acreage of 69-acre parcel that they've been farming their whole lives, and now the Department of Ecology is telling him that he has a $121,000 fine. Tim Reverson calls the fines the worst abuse of power I've seen from ecology in my career. This is what we're facing now. Now we got the Department of Ecology coming out trying to impose their will on a government that is of the people, by the people, and for the people. We need to be making sure that we let the Department of Ecology hear us loud and clear. Leave the farmers alone. The guy's been farming it his whole life. His dad farmed it. They got a museum up there. It's incredible. Now they're coming out and trying to put him out of business. They put a lien against his ground because they fined him this much money. It really is disheartening to see that. But that's the end of my report. And I know we got an executive session, correct?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Baumann.
Just a couple of comments on what you commissioners had to say. Thank you for holding the line with the health district. You're very correct. It appears that fees are being raised everywhere. I forgot to mention that I was at the Pasco City Council meeting where they're discussing raising fees significantly for single-family housing from your water hookups. And something that I just want us to be aware of. I know that we talk about it, but we don't necessarily use these terms, and that's over-engineering. I'm not talking about our Public Works Department, but I see it oftentimes on some of these governmental projects where that we over-engineer to a level that's ridiculous, and in some cases can be dangerous, the over-engineering. And an example is Argent and Road 36. If you're headed eastbound, there is 4 lights that are indicated, and there's only 2 eastbound lanes of travel. Why do you need to have 4 lights controlling 2 lanes of travel? It's those kind of examples. That's just one. I could drive you around for an entire day and show you examples of it, where that you have a right turn lane that's a free right turn that's signalized. It's a free right turn. You're not merging into traffic. And every time that a yield sign is used, it's successful every time. Why do you have to have a signalized intersection? And so something that City of Pasco is getting ready to do is at the intersection of Sandifer and Road 76, they are workshopping and about to approve over $2 million to signalize one intersection. I can't fathom how in the world we have gotten so expensive to signalize an intersection. Within the last 5 years, I can show you where a signalized intersection costs less than $400,000. And it's getting to a level that it's ridiculous. The over engineering. It's not safety. I'm sick and tired of people saying, "Oh, it's safety. It's safety." No, it's not. It's not safety. We are coddling people by putting 33 warning signs in advance of whatever the sign is, saying that I appreciate a stop sign ahead sign. I appreciate that, but that's about the extent of it. I do appreciate the signs we have out in the county that are solar operated, that have the blinking lights to give you that warning. That part I do appreciate. But when you have 4 lights controlling 2 lanes of travel, that's over engineering, and that's not additional safety. That's just over engineering, and it's spending that we've got to get our arms around, because people can't afford to live in housing. And we keep saying affordable housing. Most people can't even articulate what that means. They don't even know what it means when you say affordable housing. Another thing to be aware of is the Pasco School District is planning to put a levy out to the people. It's a replacement levy for a levy that is expiring, and I think it's something that our community needs to evaluate very carefully. With a budget of nearly $360 million, the City of Pasco, over the last 12 months, last year when they were preparing their budget, they were describing how dire it was for them when they had to dip into their reserves for $5 million of reserves that they had to make their $360 million budget happen. And over 72% of the property taxes in Franklin County go to our schools, and I think we need to do some right sizing there as well. I think that we have administration. The administration has gotten top heavy, and I think that our community needs to look at and evaluate that carefully. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the additional time.
I was going to ask about the warning signs for the 2 cameras that are ticketing people too. Those are the signs I'd like to be taken down, and the cameras taken down. They don't need to be ticketing people for making a right-hand turn. If you don't come to a complete stop, you're ticketed.
The city is evaluating adding additional red light cameras. It is a revenue source, and I sat through I believe every single one of those, and I think that they need to evaluate it. I am told, and I don't have this as I don't have evidence that I can hand you, but I'm told that what the purpose for those cameras to be put up was to reduce accidents, and I'm told that has not happened. Now, the part that is they believe to potentially be the case is the accidents are less severe, but I don't know that. Yeah, and another thing, I don't know how I'm not aware that we have been a part of this, but the flock cameras that's been in the news lately, I don't know how those go about. Do we fund those, and they're not talked about in that fashion? No, I'm talking about the flock cameras where that they're yesterday I was up the valley and I counted 4 of them in one intersection. It's technology that takes the input from all kinds of different cameras, and you can put in there that you've seen a Cybertruck, or you put in Cybertruck and it will tell you the date, time, and pictures of every intersection in a geographic area where the flock camera captured one of those. And there's some significant legal issues that have been raised with different jurisdictions about the being public information request being sent out, and some of the jurisdictions have shut down their use of flock cameras, but I'm not aware that Franklin County has them.
And I can speak to those concerns about the way that the flock camera contracts are structured. They specifically state that you own the data that they produce, but they have it in a cloud, and that data, I believe, is deleted every 60 or 30 days. And so what opportunistic people are already doing, because there are people who abuse our Public Records Act, is they'll do a public records request right before the data is set to expire for that data, knowing that it's going to be deleted by Flock. So it's leading to litigation on that. So that's why generally we wouldn't advise to.
I have a question, Jeff. Just
Sure.
out of it. The other thing is I was almost certain that, well, I am certain on one circumstance because it was me, but I was almost certain that the burden of proof has to be proved by the state, not on the person, and so that traffic light cameras are not necessarily like unconstitutional, but it's very hard to prove that it, like you could say, for example, my cousin took my car that day, and it was my cousin that drove through the red light, and how would they be able to prove otherwise?
I think the infractions for the vehicle, but yeah, I see what you're saying. You could say you're not driving. Potentially, they could hold you responsible just for having the vehicle. The other problem, though, is, I mean, you're talking about, because I know someone who had an issue. They were taking a right turn, and they were ticketed for running through the intersection, essentially, and they stopped and made a right turn, and this was in Pasco, but it was cheaper for that person to pay the ticket than to take a day off work and go to court. I mean, the ticket's not that significant, and they would rather save their PTO.
That's what I'm talking about, is that intersection down there below CBC. They have that camera. If you pull up there and there's no vehicles coming, and you don't come to a complete stop before you make that right-hand turn, it's a ticket. That's ridiculous.
I didn't.
I don't know that we can, I think, hasn't that gone to the Supreme Court? This was such a big issue that it went, like originally what was happening is you'd get them sent to you. I know this because one was issued to me. I said it wasn't me. And I never had a court hearing. I never had anything else beyond that. And they told me the reason is because the burden of proof is on the state to prove beyond the shadow of a doubt that I was driving the vehicle when it was, whoever ran the red light or went when they weren't supposed to. And so that's why I was asking.
Yeah, I could look into that
I
more.
would look into that.
I'm not sure what the answer is on that.
Are you aware, do we have any flock cameras? Does Franklin County
No.
own or lease or participate in flock camera technology?
No, and it's unfortunate because it'd be a great resource. It'll alert law enforcement if a stolen vehicle is. I mean, that's the big benefit of it. So law enforcement really wants it, but the public record concern is what is concerning most prosecutors' offices. We just start getting nailed with lawsuits.
What about the Big Brother aspect of it? It sounds a little bit like
a
Big Brother.
dystopian society where the government's always watching, like in China where they have the facial recognition.
That's an area where I would have concern. I can appreciate the value of but it's pretty simple to use. I mean, you can put the parameters, you can put red vehicle, you can put a license plate number, there's all kinds of ways that you can search it, and it's you're not private. You're not going about your private business and free to travel. You're always being watched, and I would be interested in understanding more. I'm told that we have some in Franklin County. There's an intersection where I'm told there's one. I haven't had the opportunity to drive to there and look yet, but I'd be interested in knowing that. And
Would that be Franklin County or City of Pasco?
Franklin.
It is Franklin.
So this is up north on Highway 17. I'm told that there's an intersection that has flock cameras watching it. And so I need to go. I need to go look at that.
Yeah, maybe it's a Washington State Patrol thing.
Something that you said, Jeff. I wonder if there's a way for us to provide some protection from where that somebody knows that the information is going to be overwritten. If there's a way for us to protect ourselves by acknowledging that and saying, in this scenario, if you ask within this period of time, we have no way of providing that, as this is an automatic thing.
Well, it's the structures. We couldn't by an informal or even a formal policy modify the requirements of the Public Records Act, and so that's sort of the problem. Is Public Records Act says that once a request comes in, you can't destroy the records, and they know they're going to be destroyed by the Flock, whoever the corporation is that runs that. Maybe they're called Flock. I don't know. And so they're sort of targeting us with that. I don't think you could have a policy workaround because the statute requires that, and our policies are required to comply with the statute.
However, I'm just reading right now that Redmond, Washington turned off all their flock cameras because of too many ICE arrests.
Oh, well, that's separate.
I don't know.
There's quite a few jurisdictions that are they're finding that ICE was accessing their flock technology, and so they tried to prevent ICE from having access to it, which is something that the general public has access to. So they're trying to prevent a law enforcement agency from having access to something that the general public has access to, which so they've shut it off.
All right, well, let's move on down to public comment. Is there anybody for public comment?
I'll start by saying I apologize that my face comes up here often. I come up here because there are a lot of people that don't attend these meetings as much, and I know they would speak out. That geotechnology, I wonder how much tracking that does. Even a listening option in their technology of the county vehicles ought to be looked at in lieu of that conversation. I do believe that the state is on the hook for managing people that are in their state invading. It's not an immigration. I will repeat that. That is an invasion issue. The federal government is the one that states what qualifies people to be citizens. So if they're turning off those lights, they're violating the Constitution. The answer to that is a First Amendment petition, and which is signed by residents, and people are removed from office because they violated their oath. The oath is a powerful standard that we are not applying. And to redress grievances is to repair the Constitution. And I remain passionate about that. I remain accurate about that. I remain hopeful that this body will consider a more formal committee for that review and be able to mobilize counties that will shake Olympia when they are violating us as citizens in a tyrannized fashion. I do want to go back, was my last comment, to when the COG was here for Benton Franklin County. They mentioned dollars for communications for rural areas. Kalotis is one of those areas, and I know that we have 911 digital microwave that's been authorized, but if these dollars need to be spent and they're spent for a redundancy with Elon Musk technology, that is one of the things that I did glean going out there, and I'm very thrilled and affirm the sewer act that you're working on, Mr. Erdman, and this body. I think Kalotis is a worthy investment of people who work very hard to build our economy. I'm deeply concerned about what happened in Deer Park. When I was first married, that's where I lived. It is a beautiful community of farmers as well. Thank you.
Anybody else for public comment? Anybody on the phone? So I believe we do have an executive session.
Mr. Mr. Chairman, we have, we're going to need at least 45 minutes of an executive session. And I hate to make it that long, but rather than go in, go out, go in, go
Yep.
out, we'll need it.
Under what,
Potential
RCW?
litigation.
Yeah, RCW 4230-110, 1I.
And who do we need in the,
The board, the administrator, legal counsel, so myself, Ms. Lloyd, and we can have the clerk of the board in here as well.
And for the first part, Mr. Anderson.
Okay.
Tim Anderson from the auditor's office.
okay,
And then there will be a portion for just the administrator and the 3 Board of County Commissioners.
What RCW is that one?
Same RCW, 423110 1I.
So we would need legal counsel in as well?
I don't believe that RCW requires legal counsel to be in there when the board is discussing all issues that may be of legal nature.
Well, hang on a sec, because, so RCW 4230-110, 1I, it says, to discuss with legal counsel representing the agency matters related to agency enforcement, et cetera. So, I mean, it starts with that.
Okay. Alrighty, I'll have to look. Maybe we'll have to have a different RCW. We can start with that first one.
so we're going to recess into executive session for 45 minutes, starting at 11:10. Can we get everything turned off by then?
Could we start at like 11:14? Take a quick
Okay,
break.
we'll start at 11:14. Okay. We have come out of executive session with no decisions being made. We're back to regular session. Is there any other business for the good of the order?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, there is. I'd like to ask that we amend the agenda. I move that we amend the agenda to add a couple of potential action items to our agenda.
Second?
Been a motion and second to amend the agenda to add 2 action items. All in favor, say aye.
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 So, Mr. Chairman, the first item I would like to see us take action on is for this Board of County Commissioners to declare that we are going to extend the open enrollment through the end of November 2025.
Second?
There's been a motion second to extend the open enrollment through the end of November 2025. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye. And so the next item, Mr. Chairman.
No, just through November.
November.
Yeah, just through the end of November.
So the next, Mr. Chairman, is I move to approve Resolution 2025-339, and that is to approve the collective bargaining agreement and the memorandum of understanding with the Courthouse ASME Group.
Second?
There's been a motion and a second for the ASME Group for the collective bargaining agreement settlement. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Now, is there any other business for the good of the county? Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned.